Hey everybody, welcome back to another What I've Seen Lately. This is day two. As you can see, we're in a different setup. We're in my car, primarily because uh, mom has, family and stuff, people at the house, so it's kind of loud in there. So wouldn't be ideal to review this film. Um, and an interesting film to talk about nonetheless, primarily by who's directing it. That film being The Witch, which was written and directed by Robert Eggers, who would go on to do some very interesting work, most notably with The Lighthouse, which I found to be just really great. Then went on to do The Northman most recently, which I found to be fine, more or less, just fine. Um, I didn't like that it relied more on mainstream type of sensibilities, but ultimately okay nonetheless. So, um, film stars Anna Taylor-Joy as Thomasin, and she is in a Catholic family. They're very hell bent on their beliefs about Jesus and keep maintaining a certain environment. And they've been banished from their homeland, and now they have to adventure out and establish their own land near a forest. And they're forbidden to go near the forest. And one day, Thomason takes a little boy near the woods, and for a split second, she doesn't see him, and the boy suddenly disappears. And then this family tragedy ultimately uh, creates this um, dissent within each of the people in such family, um, and tensions start to brood, and um, sanity starts to be thrown out the window, and it ultimately plays to ideas that, if you've seen Robert Eggers' work, that are consistent, which is that of dissent, that of madness, and what pushes a person towards a path of darkness. The added layers to this is that there is um, the context of one's lies and the consequences to have to lying, and specifically within Catholic sensibilities, but biblical like sensibilities, what that means, um, and uh, they represent such a thing through the animals. There's goats. There's a dog at one point, and there's a angelic like appearance to some, and then a satanic like appearance to others, specifically with the goat. Um, and what you get from it is something rather isolating in nature. Again, something that would be kind of a trend in Eggers' work, specifically when you get to the lighthouse. Um, I can't help but bring up the lighthouse though, because the lighthouse, I think, um, masters a little bit more of what I think the witch is trying to do, which is again this trying to illustrate this growing dissent within a certain time period, because they utilize the time period quite a bit um, in addressing this certain theme. Um, and one thing to note about the film is that the dialogue that apparently is written is apparently stripped from actual period sources, from folk tales and other documents, to give it more of an authentic edge in terms of what's actually being spoken. And and to that extent, it actually benefits. There's the dialogue is really um, it feels appropriate for that time period. It doesn't feel artificial, or it feels like it was just written with a certain glamour. It feels very authentic by how it is written and by how it's spoken. Because the ensemble, I think, is also very good as well. Each of the players involved, and I found that the father, because I was watching the whole film and I kept hearing his voice. I was like, that voice sounds very familiar, and I looked it up, and I was right. He is actually the Green Knight in the Green Knight. So I was just like, I know that voice from somewhere. So I found out that it was actually from the Green Knight. Um, but that isolating nature that the film has, I feel, kind of gives the activity of the story not much to do. It's rather thin, because the thing about I know I keep bringing up the lighthouse, but the thing about the lighthouse that I think that the witch doesn't bear is a sense of mystery, because the lighthouse has that mystery, whereas the witch is all knowing. You understand that there is witches in the woods. You understand that there is a satanic presence within the family. You know, it's no secret of that. The movie is all about secrets and lies and such like that, but the film itself is not parroting any secrets or such for the viewer. Instead of just showing its hand, you know, pretty much at the beginning of the film. Um, Whereas the lighthouse, throughout, it feels interpretive. You can, you know, see where things might go in this direction or things might go in that direction, um, and thus the tension feels more real and it um, feels more uh, earnest. You know, with this, it feels more in the veins um, of just of ominous sort of feelings, not in the I'm completely scared and I'm very I don't know like you know like there is an unnerving like quality to it, but I wasn't completely um completely what's the word I'm looking for like I wasn't completely um like like with the lighthouse while watching it I just felt so uneasy watching it. With this I was more unnerved by its tone, by its how it's setting things up, by the subtle nature that it possesses, but not by the overall story and the the presentation of said story, because it's pretty cut and dry. And I think that ultimately that is the downfall of The Witch, is that it is very cut and dry, and that isolating nature, while is warranted, I do think is in many respects needed for this kind of story also kind of creates more thinness than thickness. So, um, but you have good performances at the center of it. Visually, it is very strong. I mean, the most consistent thing in Eggers' work is his visuals. I think that just each of his films are just complete aesthetically just really pleasing, and this is no exception to that. It's very sharp and very you know very tinted with gray, and I feel very appropriate considering the type of story that's wishing to tell. Um, but I just wish that it had um like it doesn't it feels like that craftsmanship was perfected in the lighthouse and the witch was more of a stepping stone, you know. Um it's because I could see in the lighthouse, you know, like the same things that occur in the witch in certain beats and certain setups in certain builds of tension. I feel like the lighthouse ultimately does it better because the lighthouse, as I said, has that mystery throughout, and it's a story that is trying to build in a sense of mystery. And the witch is doing the same thing, trying to build off of a sense of mystery. But the problem is that you know exactly what is going on. You know that there are presents. You know that there are witches. You know, it's not a story that is more psychological. The psychological portions are within the family dynamics and misunderstandings ultimately. You know, it's not really coming from real drama where there's, you know, where there's a again similar to Lighthouse where there is that room for interpretation of events. It's more or less just a misunderstanding and just people very, you know, very religious like minded and they're just gravitating towards a certain perspective. Um, which is just a nice, a long-winded way of saying that people are just kind of acting stupid. So, um, so it's not really scary. More, I guess you could say, spooky, creepy, but not in the vein of the Lighthouse, where I actually did feel very uneasy because of that of lack of understanding. With this, there is there's a great emphasis on understanding of its story, and I think that that uh, ultimately the downsides of it. But technically speaking, and in terms of performances, there is a lot there to chew on, um, and just by overall how it builds its tone, the subtle nature that it possesses, there are things in it that will definitely keep you engaged and definitely keep you invested. Um, I just think that the overall, just like you know, purpose of how it sets itself up, I think is you know not completely appropriate because it's not a story that has the mystery. It's a story that shows you everything. If it was a story that had the mystery, then it would have, I think that I would come out of The Witch with a much different point of view. But because of how much information it gives to the viewer, it removes that that fear that it's trying to build, you know, and ultimately has its moments, but not enough to completely like freak me out, or to completely rattle me. It has it has its moments, and I think that ultimately I found myself in a place of like solid. I found myself, what's the word I'm trying to figure out, like ultimately, like, it's a film that I watch and I think, okay, like, I'm watching something that is done solidly, but it is missing something narratively in terms of just its overall presentation, how it chooses to deliver certain information. Um, that there's something to that I feel removes a certain amount of tension and removes a certain amount of ambiguity that ultimately the Lighthouse bears, and not so much with The Witch. So, as I said, I think The Witch ultimately is a stepping stone for Robert Eggers. The Lighthouse is really his, his baby. That's like his perfect, his perfection. And The Northman is just something of like a mainstream, crap. Um, so so if you want the best out of Robert Eggers, I would say check out The Lighthouse. And if you want something that is ultimately good but not great, again, something more of a stepping stone, something that is a it's like not quite yet there, then watch The Witch. And if you just want to see Robert Eggers just kind of fall a little bit, then watch The Northman. So so ultimately, I enjoyed myself with The Witch, but I wish that the information, the way that it passes information to the viewer, I wish was more in the vein of The Lighthouse, and not so knowing up at the beginning, and having that mystery shed throughout the film, um, and thus that psychological elements that it's wishing to represent be more impactful and not as um, not as odd when you consider the drama that is being built. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on The Witch. I thought it was good, but um, comparing it to what Robert Eggers would do after this, I think that it's ultimately good, but not not something on the level of like The Lighthouse. But you guys want to know your thoughts on The Witch. If you guys have seen it, let me know in the comment section below your thoughts. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We have day 3 coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, so that's going to be it. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video, being tomorrow. So see you guys then. Bye.